Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Be Like Christ for an exciting day. Today, we are starting a new study, the book of Ezra. And so I just wanted to welcome everybody who's been studying along with us as we've been going through every chapter of the Bible. Welcome back. If you're brand new and you're just starting here in Ezra, the goal on this channel right now is to do a study, a 5-minute study through every chapter of the Bible, beginning in Genesis and going all the way to Revelation. We've completed about half the chapters in the Bible at this point, and hopefully in this year, maybe next year, we'll finish up the entire Bible. We have free video studies and free PDFs that you can download at tobelikechrist.com if you would like them. These PDFs, you're going to see it up on the screen. They have all the key details for the chapter that we're covering that particular day. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do that and go out on the website and check out the resources there. There's already hundreds of these outlines out there totally for free. We also have books available on Amazon for some of the studies, and more will be rolling out in the future. There's links to all that stuff in the description. To those of you who have been studying with me for like hundreds of days, welcome back. It's good to see you. Well, it's good to know you're there. So here's generally the rundown of our studies. They're usually 5 minutes. Now, I always say in the first study, it's going to be longer in the first study because we have to go over some context and make sure that we know exactly where we're picking up as we start this new book. So they're roughly 5 minutes most days, and our PDFs cover the key questions of the investigation process. When did the events happen? Who are the key characters? Where did the events happen geographically? And then we do an outline where we break down the text and we understand what we read. And then at the end, we cover an application where we discuss an application that we can take away from these historical stories and we can apply into our lives to live the way that God wants us to. So without any further ado, let's get into the book of Ezra and get started by first asking when these events happened historically and where exactly they fit in on the timeline of the Bible. If it's been a while since you reviewed the book of 2 Chronicles, I know it has been for me, it's wise before you start Ezra to read the last chapter of 2 Chronicles, because Ezra picks up right where 2 Chronicles leaves off. In 2 Chronicles, during the times of the kings of Israel and Judah, specifically Ezra is going to be focused on the nation of Judah, the southern kingdom. They were so wicked, they neglected God's laws, they got involved in all kinds of sin, and as punishment, God allowed the Babylonian Empire to come and to conquer Jerusalem and to destroy the city, including the temple. So Solomon's beautiful temple that he built in Jerusalem is all leveled. It's all destroyed at this point. The people of Judah were punished with 70 years of captivity in Babylon. Now, our years for that would be approximately 607 BC to 537 BC. Remember, BC time moves backwards, the opposite of what we're used to in the modern day. Now, when the 70 years were completed, that's where we're going to be picking up in Ezra, God permitted the Persian Empire to come in and conquer the Babylonians. So the Babylonians who took the people of Judah into captivity, they've now been overthrown, and there's this new Persian king. Cyrus is the name of this Persian king. He was directed by God to release the people of Judah to return to the promised land and to rebuild the temple. This would be around 539 to 538 BC is when this proclamation of Cyrus came out, declaring that the people of Judah are now free to return to the promised land and rebuild the city. So that places us on the historical timeline. And if you have any questions about any of that, you can leave them down in the comments. I'll do my best to get to them, especially if they're directly related to Ezra. Now let's talk about our key characters. The first one we just mentioned, Cyrus, the king of Persia, also known in history as Cyrus the Great. He's the king of Persia who conquered the Babylonian Empire in 539 BC. And we're going to read about him and talk about him more in our outline. Then we have the captives of Judah. The nation of Judah was taken into Babylonian exile around 607 BC. They lived in the lands of the kingdom of Babylon until they were released by Cyrus. And then we have a guy named Sheshbazzar. When Cyrus released the Jews from captivity, Sheshbazzar, it's kind of hard to say, Sheshbazzar was appointed to be the governor of Judah. He was appointed by Cyrus himself, we learn from chapter 5. He led the exiled people of Judah out of Mesopotamia and back to Jerusalem. Some believe that he had a second name. Some believe that he is the same as Zerubbabel, who we will read about in chapter 2 verse 2, and several other places in Ezra. But there are others who believe that Zerubbabel was another man. I'll say that in my opinion, in my limited study, I do think that Sheshbazzar is probably the same as Zerubbabel, but I certainly could be corrected by somebody who knows these details a little bit better than me, but it does seem that from my study that these are the same individuals. Let me know if you've studied that down below in the comments section. And now we go to everyone's favorite section, which is the map section, and talk about geography. Where did these events play out in world history? Okay, so first of all, we have the nation of Babylon. Babylon is the capital of the Babylonian Empire, or at least it was the Babylonian Empire until Cyrus overthrew it. It was conquered by Cyrus in 539, as we mentioned. So the people of Judah are in this area of the kingdom of Babylon over here in Mesopotamia, but they're going to be returning to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the capital of the kingdom of Judah, and it was the location of God's temple, the one built by Solomon. Now, you'll see on the map here, over towards the right side, you can see Babylonia and the city of Babylon on the Euphrates River, close to it. The people of Judah are going to leave that area of the world, and they're going to go over towards the left side of the map, towards the Mediterranean Sea, back to the city of Jerusalem. Now, they couldn't take a direct route because nobody through those days was traveling through the Arabian desert. They would have followed the river to the the northwest out of Babylon, and then descended down to Jerusalem. That journey was approximately 900 miles, or 1,450 kilometers, 1,450 kilometers. So it was quite a journey, and that's the journey that these exiles are going to be making as they're returning home now that Cyrus has decreed that they're free. All right, so that's some foundational information. Now let's go over to our outline and actually discuss the text. Luckily for us, as to not make this video even longer, the chapter is relatively short with just 11 verses. And I've got it all broken down into just one section. Verses 1 through 11, the decree of Cyrus and the end of Judah's 70 years in captivity. So during the first year of King Cyrus of Persia, God put it into Cyrus's heart to make a decree that had actually been prophesied by the prophets Jeremiah and Isaiah. And I have the text references there. You can go look that up in your study after this video concludes. But these prophets had prophesied that one day this guy named Cyrus would release the people of Judah out of their captivity and allow them to go home. We're going to talk about more about that in our application section. Cyrus announced that the people of Judah were free to go home if they wanted to. Any who wished was permitted to return home to rebuild God's temple in Jerusalem that had been destroyed in around 586 BC. Additionally, not only did Cyrus give them their freedom, but he gave them even more than that, and he instructed the citizens of his empire to give them even more. He ordered the citizens of his kingdom to assist any man of Judah who wanted to return with money, provisions, animals, and gifts for the new temple building. The decree was received very positively, obviously, by the people of Judah, and there were families from the tribe of Judah, from Benjamin and Levi, who prepared to make the journey back to Jerusalem. Their neighbors also received this decree gladly, and they gifted them the things that Cyrus told them to gift them: vessels of silver, with gold, with goods, with beasts, and with costly wares, according to verse 6. One other thing that's noted in the text is that when Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had initially conquered Jerusalem, he took all of the precious things out of the temple and he relocated those precious things to the temples of his gods, his idols. You can read about that in 2 Chronicles 36, verse 18. Cyrus then rededicates these precious things to the new temple project, and he gave them to the caravan that was headed back to Jerusalem. So they get some of these precious vessels that were originally in the temple returned to them so that the temple can be kind of splendid once again when they finally get it built. The treasurer of Persia accounted for all the precious vessels that were given to the returning exiles of Judah. The total was 5,400 in all, and that included 30 basins of gold, 1,000 basins of silver, 29 censers, 30 bowls of gold, 410 bowls of silver, according to verses 9 and 10. And we're told that the man in charge of this first wave of exile returnees was this man named Sheshbazzar, who is referred to as the Prince of Judah in the text. Ezra chapter 5, verse 14 calls him the governor, and he was appointed to this role by Cyrus himself, according to chapter 5 and verse 14. And so this is where chapter 1 leaves off. We have the decree of Cyrus releasing the people of Judah, and now they can finally go back to the promised land, return to their home, but they've got a lot of work to do once they get there because everything has been destroyed, and the city seems to be mostly desolate when they arrive. So they're going to have to build it up again. And what they want to do is reestablish their commitment to following God's laws that he gave through Moses, the instructions for how they were supposed to worship and how they were supposed to live. But that necessitated them having an altar to sacrifice their sacrifices on, also a temple, because the temple was the key part of the Jewish religious life. And so as the people go back, it's great to be able to go back, but they're going back to a ruin, and they're going to have to build it up. And what we're going to see in the next couple of chapters is their commitment to doing that. They want to be very serious about following God's instructions and living the way that he wants them to live, because it was a neglect of that got their forefathers sent into exile in Babylon. They don't want to repeat that now that they've been given another chance. So now for our application section, and I told you that we were going to return to these prophecies by the prophets Isaiah and Jeremiah, specifically Isaiah, in this application. This is an application about why you can trust the Bible and evidence that the Bible really is from God. Ezra 1 contains the fulfillment of a prophecy that should not be overlooked. It's easy to overlook it, but you shouldn't do it because it's one of the clearest and most obvious evidences that the Bible writers were inspired by God. The prophet Isaiah, who wrote about 200 years before these events happened, prophesied two incredible things. First, that the Medes and the Persians would conquer the Babylonians. He prophesies this in Isaiah chapter 13, verse 17 through 19. See also Daniel chapter 5, verse 28. The second thing Isaiah prophesies is that the man who God would use to conquer Babylon and to rebuild Jerusalem would be named Cyrus. So 200 years before these events, Isaiah gives the specific name of the man who's going to do these things. And now what we find in Ezra chapter 1 is that prophecy comes true, right? That's not a stroke of luck. Let me read you Isaiah's prophecy in chapter 44, verse 28 through 45, verse 4 of Isaiah's book. Who says of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and he shall fulfill all my purpose, saying of Jerusalem, she shall be built, and of the temple, your foundation shall be laid. Thus says the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have grasped, to subdue nations before him, and to loose the belts of kings, to open doors before him, that gates may not be closed. I will go before you and level the exalted places. I will break in pieces the doors of bronze and cut through the bars of iron. I will give you the treasures of darkness and the hoards in secret places, that you may know that it is I, the Lord, the God of Israel, who call you by your name. For the sake of my servant Jacob and Israel, my chosen, I call you by your name. I name you, though you do not know me. So the prophecy is there's going to be a man named Cyrus who God is going to elevate and give power to, and that he is going to be an ally of God's people, the people of Judah, and he's going to cause the temple to be rebuilt. Now that's an astonishing prophecy because at the time of this prophecy, that Isaiah is making this prophecy, the temple is still standing. And so why does it need to be rebuilt? And who is this guy named Cyrus? Well, Isaiah is prophesying this is what's going to happen. And lo and behold, history plays out. This is exactly what happens. God says here, he says, I'm calling you, Cyrus, by name. I'm calling you out, even though you don't know me. Cyrus didn't know the Lord because he wasn't even born yet. Though Cyrus didn't know the Lord when this prophecy was spoken because he wasn't born for another 150 years, God knew Cyrus and identified him by name through the prophet Isaiah. And this is an incredible prophecy. There's really no way to dismiss this prophecy as anything but divinely inspired, especially considering Cyrus's name and his reign are very well documented in non-biblical historical sources. So not only is Cyrus mentioned in the Bible, but he's also found in other texts, other archaeological findings not directly related to the Bible. And so this amazing prophecy by Isaiah that is now fulfilled in Ezra chapter 1 is an astounding proof of the inspiration of the Bible, that God was actually the one who was behind the authoring of the scriptures and these prophecies that were given to his prophets sometimes hundreds of years before the fulfillment actually came to pass. So that is our application for today, hopefully giving you some confidence in not only the book of Ezra, but the whole of the Bible as legitimate and as a legitimate historical source, which some people attack it and say that it's not. But chapter 1, I think, pretty well dismisses that. So thank you for studying along with me today. Thank you for joining me in the study of Ezra. I'm really excited about it. Lord willing, tomorrow we'll be back to study Ezra chapter 2. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do that so you can be notified. Hit that little bell notification. You can get notifications whenever our new videos come up. And hopefully in about 10 days or so, Lord willing, we'll be all the way through Ezra, which will be very quick compared to our 6 months or so through the Psalms. So until tomorrow, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and thanks for joining me today.